Welcome to Capes and Crossovers, the podcast where capes, masks, and multiverses collide. Not with fists or fandom wars, but with heart. I'm Luke Becker, here with my wonderful partner, Marvin Goines. We will be your guides through the wild, wonderful world of Marvel and DC projects. Here, we're ditching the toxicity and embracing the love, the sincerity, and the sheer joy these stories bring to the screen. Whether it's a team up, a reboot, or a universe shattering showdown, we're diving in with open minds and full on fandom. Grab your popcorn, suit up, and let's explore these worlds together. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the stories that unite us. Let's get started.
Hello, everybody. We are back with Capes and Crossovers. I am Luke Becker, and I am here with my partner, Marvin Goines. Marvin, how are you?
Doing all right, man. A lot of I really was worried, like from last week to this week, that we wouldn't have too much to talk about. And then literally every day I was texting you or you were texting me saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
look, hey, look, hey, look, hey, look, hey, look." So
Right.
we have so much cool stuff to get into. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. I just got home from work. I'm ready to talk some comics with you, man. This is gonna be awesome. A lot of Marvel news, especially a little bit of DC we can touch on. I'm really excited right now at the overall just the overall things coming out, man. Like you said, I was kind of nervous earlier in the week that it was going to be a little bit bland. I'm like, this ain't that great. But I feel like there's been a lot of stuff relating to a certain Avengers project actually that's been coming out.
Yeah.
A lot of little details, concerns, perhaps, and maybe a project that's adjacent to it, I would say. So there's a lot out there. Do you want to start with all that? You want to start somewhere else? I'm kind of cool to start wherever.
Well, I'm gonna kick off with the first thing is you inspired me to go get this super
Oh,
dope
yes.
Daredevil shirt. So, I got to show it off for everybody to see. Unfortunately, I have blur on, which I guess I'm gonna turn off so we can do this a little bit better. But there we go. So I got this really cool Daredevil shirt for like $3 off the internet, and
Oh,
it fits
yeah.
real nice. So I always got to shout out my boy Matt Murdock because I mean, hands down, favorite character of all time. Um, can we start with Daredevil? I mean,
Yes,
it's
yes.
okay,
Actually,
cool.
good call. Good call.
So last week we recorded like 5 hours before the episode came out, and rightly so, we knew that Frank was going to show up. But man, I was not prepared for Frank to actually show up. No, let me rephrase that. I wasn't prepared for the fallout of Frank showing up. That conversation between him and Matt was one of the most emotionally charged things I've ever seen in a comic book project. It had me like really emotional throughout the whole scene. Um, and you want to talk about some top tier acting from both of them? It was there in the moment when he mentioned Foggy by name.
Mhm.
Wow, the whole thing was incredible.
Yeah, dude. I mean, one of the reservations I have with the show, obviously with the retooling, the overall restructuring we saw, I was wondering if the Foggy thing was going to feel really shoehorned, where we get this introduction in episode one where we see the death of Foggy, but it's not really addressed enough throughout the show because it wasn't a big part of that original show. But as we saw last episode, they really finally tackled this head on with this conversation between Frank and Matt. And oh my God, like you said, it's without a doubt one of the most emotionally charged scenes we've gotten. So well acted. I mean, Matt Murdock is such a great character, and seeing the way Charlie Cox just throughout this whole show now, this recontextualizes a lot of what we've seen where he's clearly holding back so much emotion. He's so scared to let out what he's been feeling regarding Foggy. And now you see, like you said, Bernthal's character screaming, "Say his name," and he punches him. And in that punch, Matt realizes, like, oh my God, like I can't do this. I wasn't supposed to do that. I'm sorry. And he's telling him, like, that's the first real thing you've done since you've came here. And it's true. This is the first real bit of emotion we're seeing in regards to Foggy post episode one. And that's so so nice to see because I was so scared they were not going to make this a big thing for Matt, but it clearly should have been, and it clearly is. Oh my God, seeing Charlie Cox just feel so much emotion and cry at the thought of, I mean, I love, oh my God, I can't even, there's so many things I want to say, but the biggest thing, honestly, this was the moment that got me when he's, when basically the Punisher is saying, Bullseye didn't get killed. He's still alive. He gets to breathe the same air you do. And Frank and Matt screams at him, he got life. And he responds saying, did Foggy get life? And that like
That was brutal.
that broke me. Oh my God. That was such a hard watch, man. But seriously, like you said, brilliantly acted. One of the best scenes in Marvel, period. And I cannot say how much I love this show. I don't think words could express how much I'm enjoying the ride so far.
Great episode overall. I really liked the moment when he was, man, I forget the gentleman's name, the one that he was representing for stealing the caramel popcorn.
Yeah.
But when he talked to him, man, that conversation they had was incredible, and it was justifiable for him to feel upset about. He's like, they're getting me over popcorn, man. I'm just trying to eat. Look, I get
Uh-huh.
put in jail for a few days, and then all of a sudden lose benefits, and that is life for people.
Right.
That you're one bad day or one little
Yes.
thing from derailing everything. I mean, a lot of people hang on by a thread, and for the
Mhm.
show to do such a great job and like displaying that was awesome.
Mhm.
And not just that, but then there was also the other side of Daredevil, which is obviously Kingpin, Wilson Fisk.
Yes.
Now that I was not prepared for that even remotely. I kind of had it like in the back of my head. I'm like, he probably had that
Yeah.
Adam dude killed, or he sent him away, or he did something. I didn't expect that. It was not on my bingo card, and oh my God, was that actually like intense, man. I mean, you think, okay, he's the mayor now, he's trying to put the life of crime and mob boss behind him. No, he pauses it and then clicks play when he needs to, and
Mhm.
then he pauses it again to go and be Wilson Fisk the mayor, not Wilson Fisk the kingpin. That was, what did you think of that scene when you see Adam?
Honestly, I really love that scene. And the thing I really like throughout the show so far, and I talked about this a little bit last episode, but it's awesome how from that first diner scene where the two interact, they're both clearly telling each other, like, you're like, I know who you are. This is in your nature. You're going to go back to what you were. And they both know it. And across this whole show so far, we've seen them gradually get closer and closer to those older versions of the
Habits,
characters we
yeah.
saw. Yeah, like we're getting closer to those versions now. You're seeing Kingpin start to unravel. You're starting to see this darker side of him again after literally, I think the funniest scene in the show, without a doubt, so far. We built this city. This young school choir singing off key. And the director was saying like originally they were singing actually too well. We had to throw in a couple kids that couldn't sing
Oh,
well at all.
really?
Yeah, that's what they were saying.
Wow. Okay.
So they did that intentionally to make sure it sounded really bad. And it's like, oh, I love creative decisions like that because just the look of agony on his face. And then from there, when he has to go to this next meeting for Latvian Heritage Day, and he's like, why do I have to be here? I don't want to do this. And it's like, this is the job. You got to do it.
Yep.
And then at the same time, as we're seeing this scene with Adam locked up and he's eating his dinner so calmly, we're contrasting that with Matt, who's now practicing with the billy clubs on top of his roof. He's looking at all his different masks. It's very clear
Well,
that he's,
looking.
yeah, yes.
Sorry, I had to go for the blind joke.
It's very clear that he is getting ready to get back into the suit sooner rather than later. So between
Yeah.
both of them, we're seeing a clear unraveling, and I think that it's really awesome that the show clearly has something to say. Not just
Yeah.
with those two characters, but like you said, with the caramel corn guy too. That's another excellent example. Even if you don't agree with necessarily everything he's saying, there's a clear point being made, I think, no matter where you stand on the topic. And I think that's really insightful. The fact that the writers clearly have thought everything through, whether it's that, the dynamic between Daredevil and Kingpin, whether it be what we saw with White Tiger and that whole storyline and the injustices in the system beyond just the law, but the corrupt cops and the fact that heroes, whether they be in the law or outside of the law, maybe they should have that opportunity to do what they do if they're helping people? Like, is that so bad? They're raising a lot of great moral questions, and I'm happy about that because that's really what makes Daredevil so special.
It's true because sometimes justice is unjust, and Matt knows that. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes he takes it into his own hands. Like, I'm going to go beat the hell out of this guy
Yeah.
because I'm like, what was it in season one of the show that he goes because the father was doing stuff to his daughter and he
Yes.
heard it from a distance and he's like, I'm not going to wait for the cops. I'm going to go beat the hell out of him and get this off because I can't just sit here and listen and hear someone take abuse. I just can't handle that. And I love seeing Matt like that moment kind of starting to break, as you said, like there at the end he started practice, but it feels like that moment there with the cops and everything where he's like, oh man, I'm gonna have to put that mask on again.
Yeah.
But one cool thing I liked about this episode were the outer reaches to the further MCU. Like, you got to admit, it was really funny when he said, maybe it was a scroll.
Yeah.
No, he just like cut him off. But the fact that they also mentioned scrolls, I really figured after Secret Invasion that scrolls would never get brought up again. But clearly, I was wrong.
Hmm.
Sorry, I have to make the joke.
Yeah.
And
No.
uh, and then the Lothian thing, which brings us a little bit closer to Doom. So there's the first seed being planted for that. And I feel like there was one more MCU reference, but just seeing that they're starting to reach out to the other stuff is really neat, and I'm glad that they're starting to work on that.
Also, I'll let you know just because everyone's getting this mixed up. The Latvian thing is not Latveria, actually. It's not. It's
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
no.
okay, okay,
You're not the only one. A bunch of people got that mixed up because they sound so similar.
yeah,
That's actually a different heritage entirely. It's not about Latveria.
that
Yeah.
is that is correct. Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you for correcting me now,
Us.
so that I'm not just going around thinking this whole time. I'm like, huh, Doom.
When
Okay,
I was watching, that was my first thought as well. And then
yeah,
I saw someone else say it was, and I was like, oh, wait, duh. That's also something
yeah.
else entirely. Yeah.
Well,
But yeah, no, you're right though. This episode was fantastic. I think the show is doing a great job with exploring these moral dilemmas, these different ideas of what justice really means, and I think these next two episodes are going to be intriguing in a couple different ways because we're going to see now most likely Kamala Khan's father is supposed to have a cameo in one of these two episodes, which is a fun little thing, and I'm sure that's going to be something I'm going to call it right now. A lot of people are going to call this filler, and hey, maybe it will kind of be. I don't know, but to me. I don't mind a filler if it's actually advancing the character, because
yeah.
then it's not filler anymore.
Filler work always to me has been an opportunity to flesh out a character, and if that's not
Yes,
what you're doing, then you're really just taking up airtime for your own sake, and
yes,
I don't know why. But
exactly.
it's a two episode release tonight, which is
Yes,
pretty awesome. Just sucks that I'm so busy I won't get to watch it right off the bat. I say that now, and I'll probably stay up till like 1 in the morning watching them
me,
because I
yeah,
can't
right.
help it sometimes. But no, it there was also a mid-season trailer release earlier today. I don't know if you saw it.
Yes, I did.
Okay, cool. I mean, like half the footage is stuff we already seen, but then half is stuff that's yet to be seen. I'm so excited about Muse. Like whenever that showdown happens, I know I'm gonna be like gripping my comic books with him on it, like as I'm watching this, because I
Yeah.
finally get to see Muse. Um, and I found it interesting that they ended the episode with Muse, right? Like it was
Yes, yes, they
that
did.
scene with yeah. So clearly they're gonna start showing him soon, I'd hope, because
Yeah,
we'd only seen the barest of glimpses, and it was like in the beginning of one of the episodes. So
yes,
I don't know. I want to say like it's an odd structure, but it's not a bad one. It's just a weird one to kind of like here's Muse doing stuff. Here's Muse doing stuff again.
right.
Okay.
Because like in the early parts of the show, they were just showing the art, not him actually.
Yeah.
And they show him, I'll say, seemingly outside of the suit based on speculation
Yeah.
that he may have popped up already. I won't say for those that may have not picked up on it, but he might have popped up already in the show even without his mask on. And then in episode 4, they bookend it. They have the beginning of the episode start with Muse, and then they end the episode with Muse as well.
Yeah.
So that, like you said, that's a very interesting structure to have the introduction of him now as a vigilante of sorts, or I guess not more of like a murderer than a vigilante, but yeah,
Serial killer or
serial
whatever.
killer. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, like you said, I'm hoping that we get him sooner rather than later. My guess is probably not much in episode, because I'm guessing episode 5 is going to be more of that bank
Yeah. The
robbery
bank
story.
robbers,
Yeah,
with
and
how
then
much they were featuring it, it looks like that's going to
right.
be like the definite next story.
Yes, and then episode 6 is probably going to be, I'm going to guess, almost all about Muse, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if it wasn't. Although it does seem like there's a chance I'm not sure, but Muse might be in season 2, seemingly. At least there's some indications of that. And
Okay.
if that's the case, then I will be a little more open-minded to him not having a giant role in the season, as long as they, don't make it feel forced in. We have to wait and see. Obviously, we don't really know what the execution is going to be, but I'm open-minded, and at the very least, I like the tone that they're setting for the character so far.
I am always more welcome to not just killing off a character immediately. Like,
Yes.
sometimes they just need to go away and then bring them back. Like, look at Zemo or the leader.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it doesn't hurt to have them come back. I mean, they're foes for a reason. They're not just one-offs.
Yes.
Like one thing with MCU is they killed off a lot of people. You're like, man, I wanted to see more Claw. Like now he's long dead, so we're not going to get him again. I love Andy Serkis, and I thought it was great. So like that, I'm like really excited about Ultron coming back. So if they're going to do that with Muse,
Yeah.
all the better, all the better. And obviously Bullseye too. He's not dead. He's back. He's definitely going to come back again. There's no way he stays in that prison.
Hmm.
But that's for future talk whenever we get there.
Yes. Yes.
So do we? I was thinking we can go on to Spider-Man 4 because there's like two
Yeah,
pieces.
sure. Sure.
So for there was a character description for Sadie Sink's
Mhm.
character that got released or shared, I should say.
Yeah.
And it says she's a sharp and free-spirited woman with a mysterious past, strong-willed, intelligent, and not easily intimidated. So nothing just jumps out at me with that, but continuing from the conversation we had last week, I'm just going to stick with what I said Mayday, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that
I
sounds about
agree.
right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that makes the most sense.
But my guess is, yeah, it's going to be multiversal because why would she just have a mysterious past unless she's not from this universe?
Yes. Yes.
And then the last part, the strong-willed, intelligent, and not easily intimidated, those are absolute indicators for her. So
Hmm.
I could be wrong. This could be an entirely new character or a blend of a couple characters, but to me, that's where it's starting to land.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I'm pretty firm on I do believe it's going to be Tobey Maguire's daughter.
Yeah, me
That
too.
Spider-Man's daughter. I really do believe that's where we're heading. I think that makes the most sense. Like it's not going to have as much impact if you're introducing Mayday and like it's from a Peter and MJ you just don't know at all. Like what would that like you're not going to really have a connection automatically as an audience member in the same way. I
Hmm.
think if you give it that inherent connection to this franchise people love and have it feel organic within the story, you're already going to be winning over so many people. Like, why wouldn't you do that? And I stand by it too. I think Sadie Sink is honestly, I really do believe in her being the daughter of Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire. Like, I see that enough, honestly, when I look at her. So I'd be very much in favor of that if we're going the multiverse route, which again, clearly we seem to be. And I'm excited about it, man. Like you said, we talked about it at length last episode. She's a fantastic actress, and I am
Hmm.
so excited to see what she brings to the table for this Spider-Man world, man. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. And so the other piece of news is that Marvel and Sony are looking for someone, and this is for a female villain role for the same movie. 30s to 50s, any ethnicity, a powerful and imposing figure, an actress with strong and commanding screen presence and depth, and then negotiation with someone, but it doesn't say who.
Yeah.
So between that and the piece of info that Jeff Snyder said about another, the initials also being SS, and everyone jumped on thinking actress name, but I think he meant the character name. So my guess is going to be Silver Sable
Hmm.
because I know a long time ago they were trying to develop a Black Cat and Silver Sable movie, and that never even got like to writing stages, I don't think. So they may just want to be picking up the pieces of trying to introduce that character because knowing Sony, this is probably what they're going to do. They're going to bring her into this movie. They're going to not let her die so that they can make a movie of their own that's going to be horrible. But at least they'll be like, well,
Yeah.
we put her in the MCU first or something. But that would be that's my best guess. Is just going to be Silver Sable.
I guess the only thing I wonder with that is if we're really going the multiversal route, like what role does Silver Sable really have as an antagonist in that kind of story? Like, I don't, again, it's Sony.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
never really
yeah.
know what they're thinking, but I can't picture right. Like, you're having a Mayday story, potentially the daughter of a multiversal Peter Parker and MJ, and the antagonist is gonna be Silver Sable.
Maybe she's chasing down Mayday.
I guess, but like, I would
Yeah,
like
exactly. But
I
why
don't
would why
know.
would she even be doing that? I don't know. I was saying with some friends that I'm like, I think what might happen is that Mayday shows up in Tom's universe looking for her dad, but Toby already got sent back. Like she
Mhm.
shows up like right after No Way Home or something, looking for her dad, and it's like, nah, girl, she gone or he gone. Like
Mhm.
your dad's not here no more. And then Silver Sable enters the mix because now there's two. There's a Spider-Man and a Spider-Woman or something. I don't know, a Spider-Girl.
You
So
know,
that
I think that makes a lot of sense, but also that would be a good way to maybe have the best of both worlds, where like you're having a multiversal element that's very clear coming into the fold of the story, but you can still have like the bones of the story be kind of grounded technically. If you're having, let's say, Silver Sable, the story's still in Peter's New York, but because of everything happening right now, there's a multiversal leak that's allowing this to happen again, kind of. And now
mhm.
you're having Mayday come into the fold. So it's like you got the multiverse elements, but you can still have her, the multiversal character, be part of maybe a more street level ish story. I don't know if they're actually going to do something like that. I may be giving them too much credit here, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
you might just be because I mean you have to play ball with Sony, unfortunately. And I don't know, but in an interesting side piece of news because it just got announced like 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago. Um, the rights to 007 James Bond now like belong to Amazon, and Amy Pascal is actually going to be producing a new James Bond film. So this may not mean anything, but for the sake of, hey, she might have more things going on in her life that might change the schedule up for her a little bit, or how much involvement she may have. Who knows? I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes people like, oh, well, that doesn't matter. Sometimes these things actually really matter in smaller ways because as things shift, these people have lives outside of just work. So who knows how much she's juggling that might just shift the amount of what's the word I'm looking for here? Involvement she may have in Spider-Man 4.
Mhm. Yeah, Amy Pascal, it's interesting because like I watch her interviews all like not all the time, but like over the years I've seen so many interviews with her and like sometimes honestly I don't hate what she says, and then there's other times where I'm like, what are you thinking? Like as far as like
She's a businesswoman. At the end of the day,
yeah,
people forget that this is a business. I mean, yes, there's a love of stories and craft and this, but for a lot of these people, it's their job.
and it's funny though, because it's like when it comes to the business side of it, I'm almost thinking if you really want to make money, you need a good story anyway. And I'm not always, obviously. Like there's certain cases where like you'll
Yeah.
have the big franchises that are going to make money either way. And even Spider-Man probably is that. Like you can make a bad Spider-Man movie, it's going to make good money. But at the same time, like why wouldn't you put in the effort to make a fantastic story knowing it's going to make you more money?
But that's the thing, isn't it? There's just so many hands in so many cooks in the kitchen, as they say. Like sometimes you have to like concede certain things to get things moving. Like, okay, yeah, you can make your movie, but we want a multiversal one. Okay, cool. We're going to have to figure out a way to make that work.
Yeah.
And now you have two studios involved in it, which you got to get an agreement between both to actually get this even playing out. So I
Mhm.
understand it's a lot of politics, and luckily I'm not the one having to make these decisions. I
Yes.
just get to go sit down and watch the movie at the end of the day. But at the same time, I'm just grateful we're getting this to begin with, even if the movie is just not that great. At the end of the day, I like Spider-Man. Spider-Man is one of the greatest superheroes of all time, if not the greatest superhero of all time. So to see him continue to get a good live action is great.
Mhm.
Not that I didn't love the renditions before, but it's cool to see him be able to interact with other stuff. And
Right.
one day, he's gonna hang out with my boy Daredevil. It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
putting it out into the world. One day on the big screen, I'm gonna see him, and Matt's gonna be suited up. Don't get me wrong, I love Matt the lawyer. I'm probably the number one Matt lawyer fan. But one day I'm gonna see Spider-Man and Daredevil, just like I did in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. We're gonna have something like that, and it's gonna be incredible. It's gonna be worth the wait, y'all. Just you have to believe. You have to believe.
Spider-Man 5.
And six, if I'm so lucky.
Yeah, there you go.
So, on the front of MCU, there was a new look at Ironheart, which was just a few images, but it just this show's been finished for about 3 years now. Like, God, I
Yeah.
was a whole different person when they finished filming this, and I'm just wondering, will it still fit into everything, or is there anything that they may have to go back and change? I mean, at this point, what could you even change? I guess you're just gonna have to roll with it.
You know, I can see this going in a couple ways because and there's part of me that says you shot yourself in the foot here because the time you had a moment where at least some people really were interested in the character, but Wakanda Forever was 2022, right?
2021,
Oh,
November
what?
2021,
That was
almost
2020.
four, yeah, 3.5 years ago, bro.
Oh my God.
No, wait, it was 2022. You're
Wait,
right. You're
two,
right.
right? Okay,
Yeah,
wait.
sorry, but
Okay. Still,
still.
yeah, still, it's 3 years. Yeah, it's 3 years since we've seen the character. And, you know, and even at the time, some people were mixed on the character. Not everybody loved her. I was a fan of the character, honestly. My whole take on her in the movie was more just, I would have liked to get a little more with her, honestly. But I had no issues with the character or Dominique Thorne, especially in the role. I really liked her. But,
Yeah.
as far as the show now, it probably would have done better if you released it closer to the movie. But the one argument I can make for why it could be good that it's releasing now, potentially, which also perhaps relates to another piece of news coming later, is the fact that Ironheart is a likely fit for the Champions team, which is also kind of similar to the Young Avengers, and that group is probably going to play some kind of role in Doomsday and or Secret Wars, which is obviously not far off now. You're talking 2026.
Yeah.
So if you're getting an Ironheart show in, middle of 2025 and you're going to see the character again literally a year later as part of this young group in Avengers Doomsday maybe, then maybe it becomes a little more relevant. And then it's like, "Oh yeah, there's a good reintroduction to the character before we see her in this project. This is cool." In that sense, maybe it could work, but at the same time, I can see both sides to it. I'm interested though. I'm interested because I like her a lot, like I was mentioning. I
Mhm.
really think that the commitment to this storyline of seemingly what we've heard at least, tech versus magic is kind of the pitch that I've heard a lot of times from people, which I think is awesome. And Mephisto potentially being at the heart of the story with what's the name of the actor playing Mephisto?
Sasha Baron Cohen.
Yes. Oh my God. If that's really what the route is here, I'm all in on that. I think that's going to be awesome. And we also have Anthony Ramos playing the
The
Hood.
Hood.
Yeah,
That's what I'm most excited about is the
right.
Hood. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great cast seemingly that's been shaped up here, and I think that they might have a really good story to tell. So I'm here for it. Just please, 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 please don't fail me after 3 years of waiting, because I'm gonna be so sad if it's not good, because I really do believe it's gonna be good.
I'm hoping so too. I mean, we're gonna have to see her go through the ordeal of making a new suit because the Wakandans obviously didn't let her keep it, which is a shame, but understandable. Of course, she's smart enough and resourceful enough to make a new one on her own. So I want to see that process, which I'm sure that's going to be probably the start off of it, like seeing where she leads off and starts making a new suit. Because
Mhm.
the one that she made in the movie that she was fighting with, like before they left Chicago, I think it got destroyed, right?
Yeah, yeah, that got
More or
destroyed, I
less.
believe.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, but doesn't mean it's all gone. I'm sure there's bits and pieces you could probably figure out.
Right.
I do remember that there's like a description of the show. It's basically like she's stealing resources around off of the MIT campus to make this new
Hmm.
suit and starts
Yeah.
bringing attention to herself. So curious whose attention. I'm sure it's going to be like the DODC and obviously the Hood and whatnot. So
Yeah, and I will say the one element that could be exciting for me as well, it's just as far as the style of the show goes. I'm interested to see how much of the suit in different shots they decide to do practically, because
mhm.
it seems like they're using a practical suit more than we have seen in a while for like an Iron Man type suit in this show. At least
Yeah,
from the footage of like BTS and like pictures I've seen, like
yeah.
they do definitely have some real practical stuff. And in the pictures we got the other day, the suit looks really like realistic. Like I'm questioning if parts of that are real because it looks fantastic, honestly.
Did you ever watch Fallout?
Actually, no, I didn't get to watch that show.
Well, they made a practical power armor suit, but then
Uh-huh.
they added effects after the fact, and
Right.
that's pretty much the same route they're going. And it looked great in Fallout, so I got a feeling this was going to look good. But I think it's also a cost cutting measure, but also a good one. I mean, as much as I love overlay suits, sometimes they can look bad, like the helmet in Thor and Love and Thunder, for example.
Yes.
But then you have other cases where it looks really good, like the one that Tom wears for about 99% of the time. I mean,
Mhm.
those always look good. So I know it's a little bit different because you've got just versus like a pajama suit versus like a bunch of piece of machinery. But even at
Yeah.
the end of the day, looking back at those phase one Iron Man suits, they were wonderful. Love them, miss them. So yeah, there's is there a release date? I'm sure there is. I just
Yeah, there is. It's June 24th.
oh, so April, May, June. Wow, 3 months away.
Yeah,
Okay.
not that far. Like we're probably getting a trailer sooner rather than later, I'd imagine.
Don't they keep it a little bit tighter now with the Disney Plus series?
Tighter than before, but I'd imagine like a month at most now. Like there's no way they do it later than that, I would think or hope. I don't know
My
though.
guess would be is after Thunderbolts comes out, then they would start the marketing push for that.
Yeah, it could be that. They could wait till then if they want. That's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you sent me something about the Russos.
Yes.
I didn't read it until just before we started this, but I did look at it briefly and saying that Feige's a little bit concerned after what happened with the Electric State.
Yes, correct.
So now that they're already deep in production, he's not planning on replacing any of them because it's too late to do it, but he will be more involved overall in the whole of it.
Uh-huh.
So what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is that no matter how you sliced it, these Avengers movies were probably going to be extremely Feige driven. Whether this happened or not, I think that's the direction we were going in. I mean, looking at Endgame and Infinity War, I'm sure the Russos obviously did plenty of work there, but
Hmm.
do I think Feige was heavily involved in those two projects, especially? Absolutely.
Probably,
That
yeah.
was the culmination of the storyline he's been building for so long. There's no way he wasn't super involved in that, whether it be narratively or as far as keeping up on production constantly, making sure, hey, how's this going? Is this okay? This good? And stuff like that. And I think that we're pretty much just going to get the same thing, except maybe even more so potentially, which I'd say that worries me, but it doesn't just because I think that's kind of how, again, pretty much how we got the movies we loved already.
Yeah.
Whether or not I think that's the best thing for a movie in general, that's another discussion. Because would I like a world where we can get in Avengers movies by somebody that maybe has more of their own unique style and vision and could do something that's more director driven? Yeah, maybe I would like that, but at the same time, the Avengers movies are an exception where I at least understand that it makes sense to have it be a bit more producer driven when there's so much riding on them. This isn't making a Black Panther movie or even a Spider-Man movie, which I love. And I'm sure, producers are heavily involved in that, obviously, but there's even more tied to an Avengers movie. It's the culmination of your entire phases 4, 5, and soon to be 6, I believe. So
Yep.
like that's a lot you're putting into these projects. And to put risk on two guys that are coming off maybe the worst movie of their career and outside of the MCU have had a lot of poor projects, that was never going to happen regardless of the electric state, I don't think. I don't think that was ever really in question, honestly. I don't.
What I think might be giving Feige pause, and this is just my opinion, is
Hmm.
the dollar amount because they spent a lot of money on the Electric State for it
Oh
to be a
yeah.
dud. And Bob Iger is he's not as stingy as Chapek, I would say, but he's definitely a numbers guy. He's not just going to be like, yeah, I'm not just giving you a blank check to do whatever you want. You need to keep this at an X dollar amount. You need to be serious and focus and, as they say, lock in for these. You can't just go and start throwing money around. But I don't know. This is also, you know, speculation. And I wouldn't say speculation, but he said, she said. I mean, for all we know, if I could be like, they're fine, and we don't know that. So
Uh-huh.
I try not to dwell too much on it, but I would definitely, as a you know business-minded person, be like, "Man, y'all just blew $300 million for that. For
Yeah.
that,
Uh-huh.
yeah, okay. I'm gonna keep an eye on you a little bit harder, and that's good because at the end of the day, again, it's still a business. There's no reason to go blow money for no reason and not get a good result. Um,
Yeah,
I
I'm
can't.
curious. I haven't seen the movie. Did you?
I almost wanted to start it, and I'm like, I have so much better things I can do with my time, so I just opted not to.
Okay.
Um, I've seen two clips. I was walking on the treadmill, and one of the TVs on at the gym was showing a clip where Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt meet. yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't anything. I'm like, oh, I want to watch this movie. I'm just like, I see exactly what they're talking about, and I'm so glad that I'm not even bothering with this.
Uh-huh.
So, and then I saw another little clip on Twitter. I was just scrolling, and it was like another scene where um, Chris Pratt's character is getting held up for something, and like, yeah, it's like neat for like a quick second, but I don't know. I I don't remember exactly what the words used, but the guy who wrote the novel that it's based on, like, had to come out and defend the movie. I'm like, that's bad.
Hmm.
He was like, well, I've always wanted to see it adapted, and I'm pretty impressed by the work. Like, a lot of authors say that because
Hmm.
they're gonna get their cut of the money here at some point because, rights and everything. But when I see stuff like that, I'm like, oh, it's bad, bad. Like
Right.
one of the very few um, authors I've ever say I'm not happy with this end result was Rick Riordan with the Percy Jackson movies. He was just like, nope,
Right.
didn't like those. But most people don't do that because that can cost you money. But so
Hmm.
it was like a little bit of damage control.
Right.
Since we're on the topic of Doomsday, you also sent me something else about She-Hulk making an appearance. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the report was coming from comicbook.com, and essentially they were looking into the fact that Tatiana Maslany was not going to a Comic-Con event that was around the same time that Doomsday is going to be filming. She had to cancel that appearance.
Mhm.
And also after the leaked concept art, which I will say there was an image with her in it. That's the most I'll divulge because I don't want to spoil everything for everyone. But in that concept art, which could have been real, they just after seeing that the writer of this article decided to dig a little bit and see if they can find any info on whether or not she's going to be in the movie. And according to their sources, she in fact does have a role in the movie. And it's not just a blink and you'll see it moment or a cameo, it's an actual role. To what degree, we're not fully clear, I suppose, but it's definitely more than just a cameo, which is honestly something I'm happy about. And it's funny, I tweeted about this before that news even came out on Twitter because I really enjoyed, honestly, a lot of her show. And I like her a lot as an actress, and I think she deserves another shot in that role. So if she's in Doomsday, I would be very happy about that. I think she deserves that opportunity. And beyond that, I just want to see, honestly, I want to see as many new Avengers characters as
Yep,
possible
yep,
because I really want to get that chemistry going between these new cast members. We haven't
yep.
seen almost any of them interact yet. And I think that's such a core component of what made the other Avengers movies so good. The
I think
chemistry,
the
you
most
know?
we've gotten so far is the post-credit scene in Shang-Chi.
Right, that, and I guess if you want to say Miss Marvel interacting with like Monica Rambeau and the Marvels, obviously, like that. But like
Yeah.
beyond that, we haven't gotten any of those interactions in any extended capacity. So I
Captain
really,
America hasn't
yeah,
even spoken any of these now that I think about it.
no, not to a
And he's
single
the leader of
person.
this.
Yes.
God.
I know, and that's where things get so like I know that's where I have my reservations with this movie because I really feel like parts of this is just so rushed, and I don't
Yeah.
love that. I
But I get
really,
it. They're trying to
yeah,
get the multiverse saga out of the way. I mean, what can you do
yeah,
at this point? Everything that could go wrong pretty much went wrong. So it's
right.
okay. Sometimes life happens and things you can plan for everything in life and still fail. That's just life.
Did they plan on the Jonathan Major stuff happening? Most
Yeah, of
certainly
course
not.
not. Yeah, I
Like
mean,
that changed everything.
yeah. And at least they're trying to play ball and pivot to something that might work. And I mean, hey, if RDJ is Doom and bringing back the Russos as the play, cool. It's probably going to work. But at the end of the day, it's just about getting something to work, and that probably will for him. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Just, do you think She-Hulk will break the fourth wall in this movie?
You see, I feel like it's so tricky. I feel like there has to be an opportunity for that to happen between the two Avengers movies in some way if she's going to be in them, just because, like, if you're going to use these characters, don't abandon what makes them who they are. It doesn't mean you have to like do it all the time. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
Because then you start to exhaust the novelty and you start to lose sight of what the tone of this movie is probably supposed to be, which is very serious, very dark, I'd imagine in a lot of ways. But
yeah.
I think like could there be an opportunity maybe earlier in the movie where she does it? Maybe when we first get introduced to her, maybe like the Avengers come to recruit her and she looks at the screen and is like, "Oh wow, I mean, I can't believe they're here for me. My show didn't do well." And then something like that happens, like that would be fun, like a little thing like that. But once we get into like the meat and potatoes of the plot, I don't think I really need much of fourth wall breaks with her, honestly. At least in my
Well,
opinion.
what I want to see is her and Deadpool break it
Yes,
together
together. Yes,
on screen.
yes,
Just be like,
yes.
you can see them too? Sweet.
Yeah.
Finally, someone who understands, just be cool because I'm pretty sure
Yes.
they did something of that capacity in the comics at some point, but that would be very funny because there's no way they don't use Deadpool. He's way too huge for
Oh
them to
yeah.
like be like, no, no, we're not going to bring him in. Like he has to be a part of it. Like I could be wrong. I could be dead
He's
wrong,
gonna
but
be in
but come
this.
on, yeah, like
Yeah.
that is easy money. Like you're just leaving money on the table if you don't bring him in for that one.
Deadpool and Wolverine was a multiverse story. You're telling me after that movie they're not going to continue that thread into
Right.
Doomsday and Secret Wars? There's no shot. Him and Hugh Jackman have to have some role, and more than just a small role. I'd imagine at least a medium-sized role in these movies, at minimum.
They're
I
world
think for
savers.
sure.
Why wouldn't they come back and help save the world again? I mean, it makes
Right.
sense. It's in tone with their where they've been going and where they're headed to.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
now on the topic of characters not showing up in the Avengers,
Hmm.
apparently Elizabeth Olsen is not showing up as the Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff.
Well, my take
Well,
on
she's
that.
dead.
Yeah,
So
dead.
let's start with that.
Yeah.
She's dead. Dead. Comic
Yes.
book dead. So what do you think?
I think that Andrew Garfield is not the werewolf. That is what I think.
That's a good answer.
And for what it's worth, like you said, it's already tough enough when you get asked those questions as an actor or actress, but
Mhm.
in her case, even more so. Like you said, she's supposed to technically be dead. So beyond just like not wanting to spoil her being in the movie, she can't spoil that she's officially alive either. So like there's two layers to the secrecy with her potential involvement in this movie. And her whole point was, "Oh, I'm flying out of London and the Avengers are about to film in London. I'm about to go film a pilot." But
Mhm.
at the same time, like, how long is this Avengers movie going to film? I'd imagine it has to be like a 5 month shoot, probably, like at least.
I'd say minimum four at least.
Like, I gotta imagine it's going to be 5, 6 tops. So, like, you're telling me it in all the time that they're going to be filming, she can't film a pilot and then go back to London at some point to go film scenes for Avengers Doomsday. And for what it's worth, I don't think she's going to have like a massive role in that movie, but I'd imagine she's going to have a role in the movie. Yeah. Like there's no way you don't close out this saga without addressing her in some way. I just don't see it personally. I think that'd be pretty bizarre.
Yeah. Um, with that said, when with all these characters that we've been talking about, there's obviously this could transition to the last thing we have, but
Yeah.
there came a report from an exclusive, I should say, excuse me, from Nexus Point News that Rachna Fruitbaum is going to be the writer for Champions.
Hmm.
Now, at first, obviously, the name didn't stick out. I didn't know it, but she wrote actually 2 episodes of one of my favorite TV shows, which is Shrinking on Apple TV. Season 1, episode 4, and season 2, episode 1. So, for those not familiar, Shrinking is a show with Jason Segel and it also has Harrison Ford in it, where it's about a therapist who kind of decides to break standard convention and just kind of goes in a more direct and honest approach with his clients. It's a fantastic show. It's very funny. It's produced by Bill Lawrence, who did awesome shows like Scrubs and Acapulco, which two I also enjoy. And I can't think of. I mean, if she's working on stuff like this and Parks and Rec and Fresh Off the Boat, I'm actually really excited about this show. I've never really cared about Young Avengers or Champions, whatever you want to call them. But to see that they're bringing somebody very comedy minded into this gets me excited because you're going to have a bunch of young personalities. Of course, there's going to be a lot of laughter and funny moments as they try to learn how to get and work together. And Parks and Rec is a collaborative process too. There's a bunch of people all working together trying to get a local government going, and shrinking is a workplace in a sense comedy because it's about all these therapists working together. So I'm excited for this one now. I just it's what got me was that they kind of just outright confirmed that it's a show. I feel like some really intelligent Greek person kept saying to me that this is going to be a show
Oh yeah.
because it's the only way this would work. And I'm like, I'm seeing it now. I'm seeing it now. At first, I was like, okay, yeah, they're probably doing a movie. But as I put more thought into it, definitely, I can see why it works so much better as a show because you're basically blending all these characters from what one show, Miss Marvel, another show, WandaVision, movie and a show, Dominique. I'm sorry, Riri Williams, and I feel like I'm forgetting one. I'm guessing uh, Teddy from
Yeah.
uh, or no, Scar.
Well, we
I
have,
cannot remember his
we
name though.
haven't seen Teddy yet, but I'd imagine Teddy is going to be a character that comes into the fold sooner rather than later for that storyline. Yeah, I'm
I
pretty
was
close.
I was trying to get the name of the Hulk son.
Oh, I'm Scar. Yeah,
Scar. That's what I meant. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, I confuse them sometimes, and it's so like a majority of these come from TV shows, right? So it kind of makes sense to keep them in that. And then this way, you're not just throwing them all together. Oh, I almost forgot Hawkeye, Kate Bishop.
Yes.
So, I mean, these are all from TV shows. It makes more sense to give them time to spin around each other versus like here in 2 hours, you guys have to figure it out, introduce them all, reintroduce them to the audience that hasn't seen them over several years because WandaVision was what, 2021?
Uh-huh.
Hawkeye was late 2022. She-Hulk was summer 2023.
Hmm.
We still haven't even seen Ironheart yet. And forgetting one. And assuming they add Elijah, as uh, the Patriot or something.
Um, Eli Bradley. Yeah,
Eli Bradley, thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
Eli Bradley.
I mean,
I don't think they're gonna do that, honestly. I could be
no?
wrong, but
Okay.
they literally, I could be wrong. This isn't sourced or anything. I'm just guessing because like they have not touched on that character literally at all. Like if they do that, if they, at least if they do that, I don't think it's gonna happen during the Avengers movies. I think that would have to be something they do during the show as like a new person coming into the fold that they recruit.
Mhm.
I don't see that happening during these Avengers storylines with Eli at least.
Okay.
And looking at the story, it's interesting because I think there's a clear place for the Young Avengers or champions. I'm so used to saying Young Avengers. Champions is weird, but for the champions to be involved in this story, and you know, we don't know when the show's coming out, but I'd imagine it's gonna be post Secret Wars, maybe, or maybe.
Probably. There's no way they're going to squeeze that in
Right.
time.
It'd have to be. And I guess my pitch was always I wanted a Champions project or Young Avengers project to be in between Doomsday and Secret Wars. I always wanted that to happen before we got this news. That was my hope. Just because I felt that'd be a really nice segue point to really establish like what's going on in Battle Worlds between those two projects and what are those young heroes doing to kind of contribute to the overarching story so you don't gotta like force them into these other narratives where you already have so much to do with like a million characters, it feels like. So I think that would have been a nice way to split up the time a little more evenly without like shortchanging anybody. Obviously, that doesn't seem to be the plan, so I'm curious to see how they handle this now, if those characters are indeed going to be in the Avengers storyline. And if they are, I'd imagine they might take some elements of like the Children's Crusade storyline where they're searching for Wanda. I mean, that seems like the obvious thing to do. I'm not sure if you've read that comic before, but
I have not, but I'm going to add that to
yeah,
the list because I read The Vision
yeah,
last week based on your recommendation, which I really enjoyed.
good. And Children's Crusade is a really good run. And honestly, that's the only bit of Young Avengers I've read so far. I read it because I just heard it was a great story and I was curious about it, but maybe like a year or so ago. And essentially, to simplify it, it's you have the Young Avengers in the story, and you have Billy actually, who doesn't know that Scarlet Witch is his mom for sure, but he wants to find out essentially. So you kind of have that part kind of happening in Agatha actually, where he's finding out about Scarlet Witch being well, it's Billy, but Billy's rediscovering his own identity in the new body. It's a whole weird thing to explain, but if you saw the show, you know what I mean.
I
And he's
totally forgot about Agatha.
yeah,
I forgot that character. Sorry, Wiccan.
yeah.
Sorry, Wiccan fans. My bad.
Wiccan will be back. Wiccan will be back. And that's another part too. I think that Wiccan will probably have to. You see, again, there's just so much that has to be done potentially before these movies happen, and that's where I'm like, I'm trying to juggle
As
all these different storylines, you know?
as you were talking, I just had a crazy idea that might just work.
Oh, please pitch it to me.
So remember how Far From Home was an epilogue to the Infinity Saga?
Yeah.
Right. So I have a feeling that this show will be the same to the fallout from what happens at the end of this saga.
Oh.
So somehow, as you know, you're going to have all these different teams battling Doom in one way or another. And I think this is where the formation of them happens. And they'll get the name champions at the end because they'll be amongst the group that wins. So they're champions, right? And then that's what will carry them over into the show. So you don't have to spend as much time in the show introducing one another because they know, but rather getting themselves to assemble with one another and kind of being like a an ending note to what everything that just happened. Like they just experienced everything in Doomsday and Secret Wars, and this would make it easier for them to say, hey, this is the new face of the MCU. These are the new characters you're going to be looking at least spending some time with. I could be totally wrong, but I was just thinking it would actually really work if this was still part of the multiverse saga, but the end similar to how Far From Home was. Because, Far From Home isn't, it started to touch upon the multiverse, obviously, like doing hints, but he could also do the same thing of maybe giving us an opportunity to introduce mutants to go into the next saga.
Right. Oh, man, I really am beyond. I was talking actually to a friend about this today. I've been so excited about the premise of getting mutants reintroduced into the MCU, man. Like, honestly, I heard a couple people say this, and it was confusing to me because Miss Marvel we had introduced as a mutant during her
Mm-hmm.
show,
Yep.
and I've heard a lot of people say like people with sources saying essentially that she's probably not going to be part of the X-Men, and I'm like, why not? It's like, at least for me, it's like if you introduced her as a mutant, like wouldn't you want her to be like a big part of that next saga of mutants? Why otherwise, why not just keep her an Inhuman? At
I'd
least,
say reason for her staying mutant and staying where she is because she's very family oriented, and I don't think she wants to leave her community.
okay, that's fair. That's valid.
Because that's one thing is that she always likes to stay around her family, and um, they very, very vaguely hinted at it, but that her brother also has powers, so that
Mhm.
may be something they want to explore in the future and have her be a part of it. Because like you don't really want to show about the brother, you want to show about Miss Marvel, Kamala, and what she's doing. Now she's having to deal with her brother getting powers. That could be like a really interesting thread to follow.
Does she have? Why don't I remember her brother? You mean? Do you mean the best friend, Bruno?
No, her actual brother. Remember he
Wait.
got married?
Oh, duh. Wait, I'm dumb. Yeah, right. I'm the older brother. Yes. I
Mhm.
don't know why I forgot about the older brother.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, that would be interesting. And that is a valid point as far as she is very close with her community. Obviously, it's a very tight-knit kind of situation there. So I
Look
could,
look back at the
yeah,
Marvels. I mean,
right.
like her whole thing was protecting her family and staying close with them, even while she was going and saving the
True.
universe, planets, whatever. Yeah. But I like that.
So
That's one of my
yeah.
favorite aspects of her as a character is that she's true to her culture. Like family is big.
hmm Okay, no, that's valid. But do you think it made sense to introduce her as a mutant then? I'm just curious.
Yes, because Feige doesn't like the Inhumans, and he's never going to let that ever come back. It's
Oh,
it's it's
God.
the sad but honest truth. I mean, he doesn't like
Yeah.
Inhumans. Okay, fine. We've got to move past that. Can't really dwell. And the Namor is also a mutant. But they don't just because you're a mutant does not automatically mean you
Oh
need to be
yeah,
a part of the
sure.
X-Men because there's so many other mutants that also exist that have no affiliation with the X-Men.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I guess in the particular case of Miss Marvel, I imagined it mainly because she's just such a popular character right now, and like
Yeah.
that's just a character people love so much, especially Iman Vellani as an actress. Like people are so attached to her, and she's clearly so passionate about the role that like I imagined if like anyone was going to be like front and center of like a new team in Marvel. I guess she has the Young Avengers now, so like I guess that kind of fills that void, and she's a mutant on that team, so that still works. I
I could
just
see her
yeah.
collaborating with them, like, hey, we need help. Like, okay, I'm
Right.
on the way, I'm
Yeah.
coming. But I
Uh-huh.
just can't see her being a full-time member because
Yeah. Yeah.
the X mansion is like upstate New York and she lives, in Jersey. I don't think she wants, even if that's not that far, because it really isn't, it's like a few hours. I still can't see her wanting to be separated from her family, nor can I see her parents allowing it. That's
Yeah.
my main thing. I just really
True.
cannot see her parents being like, yeah, no, that's fine. which makes all the more interesting to see her dad later tonight in Daredevil, because maybe we hear something about her, because I want to know what she's been up to. They have to reference her, and if they don't, I will be so upset.
I might have to watch that episode tonight. Oh
I know.
God. Man, that's gonna be tough if I don't watch it tonight. Otherwise, I'm probably have to wait till Thursday, which is gonna kill me. So I might make every effort to watch it tonight.
It might just be worth it, but I don't know. I don't know.
Um,
But that's the thing. There's just so much like that with the champions. It can be done. I mean, for all we know, they put it in between the movies. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
I'm along for the ride. But it was just like a nice little thought to think, hey, this could be after the fact. This is something that lets us explore the results of what happened after Secret Wars or whatever. Because that was one thing I liked about Far From Home. We had to like the first thing they addressed was, hey, what's going on with the Avengers? Who's in charge now? And Spider-Man's all overwhelmed because he doesn't know how to answer these questions. Nobody does. I mean, Tony is gone.
yeah.
Natasha's gone. And it's a very weird thing to like people asking so quickly after the blip happened. It's like, hey, I'm still trying to process the grief of my mentor. They don't know that, but it's like, hey, we're trying to figure it out. And the Avengers still aren't really up and running as far as
Right.
we know right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering what they would do something similar with the champions if they're like, if memories get wiped or if they get separated and they try to figure out how to bring themselves back together.
Right. Man, there's so many interesting possibilities. Again, that's the whole double-edged sword here. Even though I'm not thrilled about how we got to this point, the endless possibilities is exciting. It really is because there's so many different things they can do that are genuinely beyond intriguing as far as where the stories could go, but also, like you said, where the story directly after can go because there's so many implications about what post Secret Wars Marvel is going to look like. It's going to be such a different world, but also perhaps similar in a lot of ways. We might get a lot of the same cast members, but we also might get some recast for certain people. We might get certain people aged up. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of possibilities for what they can do, and that's such an exciting thing to discuss right now because as someone who's always so deeply rooted in these communities of leaks and news, because I've always been that guy, it's nice right now not knowing about what the future of Marvel is going to be specifically because I'm with everybody right now. My guess is as good as yours, and I love
Yep.
that. I really do. It's fun.
One thing to note though is she's just a writer, not a showrunner, just a
Yes.
writer.
Yes.
So like unless they like come out outright and say, okay, we got a showrunner. Okay, this isn't moving anytime soon. I mean, and this
Right.
is also coming not to knock Nexus Point because I know they do excellent work over there.
Yes. Yes.
This isn't like a deadline, Hollywood Reporter confirmed. Sure, it'll probably get confirmed eventually or soon enough, but until you have a trade drop it, you have to treat it with a little bit of grain of salt.
Right.
Again, not saying that this isn't true. I'm sure it's accurate because they do accurate
Yes.
reporting, but we
Yes.
can't sit here and be like, all right, this is definitely happening. I mean, this could just be the beginning of development. Like there was that report 2 months ago about some shows, and one of them was one that not a single leaker or
Oh,
scooper mentioned.
yeah, yeah. It was
Yeah,
the,
like
the the show with Man thing, like the monsters and the
terror
monster
or
show.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I've never heard of it. It never got brought up. It was never mentioned. So like clear, there's a lot of things we don't know going on at the same time too. There's still Nova that hasn't even really turned the dial at all.
Well, it's funny because they were turning the dial seemingly. They were even getting ready for casting. They were talking to people, and then they seemingly just like
Big
flipped the
old
switch
pause.
off
Yep.
like out of nowhere, which was
And that's
so
what I'm saying.
shocking.
This could
Yeah,
happen with champions. The same thing. They could be like 3 months later. I'm like, you know what? No, we don't want to do this. We want to do something
right,
else. My hope is that if they're already grabbing writers this early, is that they have an idea of the next saga and they're just trying to plan it out a little bit better and
right.
maybe come up with I don't want to say alternatives, but backup plans in case you have like I don't want to say a major situation, but if you have something of like that level that's like, okay, hey, this is going wrong. We need to pivot, be prepared for that. So preparation, that's the word. I think they're just doing proper preparation in advance in case of contingency, something happens, this person's not available. I mean, they have to pivot around the fact that we lost Chadwick Boseman, right? Like that's
Hmm.
a hard one. You have to all of a sudden they were faced with a conundrum. Do we replace him? Do we recast him? Do we just do something else? And it took them some work, but they came up to an acceptable solution that worked out really well. But it's still like things happen. I mean, that's just part of life that you always have to be prepared. And
Right.
I feel a little bit better about it if they're starting to plan in advance all these things.
Yes. No, I agree. For all the talk of like, I hate how much like Marvel focuses on the future and plans ahead too much to where they lose sight of what's going on right now. I don't think that's a real thing for the most part. I think if you're not planning ahead, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot. You gotta plan
Absolutely.
ahead.
Yeah.
Especially you're mapping out so many different projects in such a massive world. And obviously, look, Marvel does things, or they have done things a little differently than like what DC's about to do. I talked about this a little bit last episode. DC is very focused on world building. Marvel has always traditionally at least been very story building driven. It's a very different system. Obviously, things have changed a little bit. They're less story building now than before. Like literally during the Infinity Saga, we had a stretch of like eight, like six, seven projects that directly tied into like our overarching story here. Like the connections could not be more clear. And honestly, ironically, for all the talk of I wish things were less like this, I wish things were more like that right now, honestly, looking at where we are, just because we haven't gotten enough build up, and I don't think there's such thing as too much build up necessarily. I just care that you can feel a clear vision with each project that's being made. I don't think that connecting it to the overarching story necessarily has to take away from that. I don't think the
Yeah.
two are mutually exclusive. And I think that's a misconception some people have because clearly what they did was working. They had so many fantastic projects back to back to back to back. It's one of the greatest runs you will ever see as far as like a franchise. It was really special. And you can't expect them to necessarily replicate that because it could be an anomaly, honestly, in a lot of ways. They Feige and a lot of people involved at Marvel have said themselves they were kind of going with the flow in a lot of ways where they had a plan, but a lot of things changed along the way. A lot of scripts weren't even ready when they went into production. A lot of things like just happened along the way that were unexpected, but they still landed on something that felt very specifically and meticulously planned the whole way, even though a lot of things actually somehow weren't. So sometimes that process might not get you the result you want, and that's kind of I think what we're seeing right now. But there's clearly a path forward that they can take, and I think that story building can be the path back to success, especially if they can nail these next couple projects leading up to Doomsday and at least create just a little bit of momentum to make me feel like we're not just dropping into that story without any real sense of purpose.
Yeah, because with Infinity War, you had the end of Ragnarok
Right.
it teed you up real nice.
Oh yeah.
You were just like, oh, oh no, this is about
Yeah.
to be really bad, you know? Like right now, I'm like, Doom's nowhere in sight, and I'm just like, I'm sure they'll find a way to add it in. My guess, again, guess, is going to be Fantastic Four because it would be the most natural conclusion. But at the same time, that movie's coming out in July. I can't see
Yeah.
a world where they're going to add that. I could be wrong, of course,
No.
but we'll see. I'm just trying to think what else comes out because we only have Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, and then after that,
Well, I guess Thunderbolts is going to tie in more than we thought just because of the fact that seemingly Thunderbolts are going to have a pretty big role in Doomsday. At least that's been the word out there. So at least that creates some sense of relevancy, especially if I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to spoil where the plot's going, but I'll just say that there's a major chance that there's implications in that movie as to what their role is going to be, meaning the
Mhm.
Thunderbolts versus our Avengers. And I think there could be a bit of a clash that even comes between those two groups there due to certain titles and what they represent, what they don't represent. I think that could happen in the early stages of the movie before Doom is seen as like, the main threat. Like I could see something like that happening where,
Yeah,
okay, now we're seeing the clear connection from that. And in Brave New World, we had, even though it felt, a bit shoehorned in to me the way they did it at the end of the movie, but Cap saying, I need to get the Avengers back together.
yep,
But now we're gonna have maybe something different based on how Thunderbolts might go. So you might have those two kind of fixing into the plot in that way. I want to talk more specifics, but again, I don't want to spoil for people. But
yeah. I appreciate that.
so I'm speaking in generalities here. But there's definitely a path forward with those two to be more relevant than people think, in my opinion, at least. And obviously, Fantastic Four, like you said, Doom is the obvious connection to make there, even though I don't think it's going to be more than a post-credit scene
Right.
and maybe at most the most I can imagine would be if they filmed maybe some late flashback stuff when they got RDJ to come in to show maybe some of the origins with that whole crew maybe and he's in a scene there That's like the most I can envision as far as him in that movie. So I wouldn't expect anything massive as far as him appearing prior to Doomsday. But then again, Infinity War did so much for Thanos as far as like building him up as a character because he was really the main character in that movie.
Yep.
And Doomsday might even be more so the main character of this movie. So is that going to work and make me feel he is the guy for this saga? Maybe. Maybe it won't. Like you said, right now we're just speculating.
Yeah. And it's fun to speculate. I mean,
Yeah, of course.
I 10 times over, I'd rather speculate than be told, hey, this is what's going to happen. Like, okay, I guess that's going to be fun when I see it on the screen, even though I already know.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, oh, man, I really was worried we weren't going to have enough to talk about. Here we are, an hour in.
Yeah, that's perfect. We filled our hour.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully something interesting comes out between now and next week, and we'll have even more to talk about.
Well, I won't go into details, but I can say it sounds like there's going to be pretty big news very soon.
In regarding what specifically?
Marvel.
Can you go into a little bit more or no?
I'll talk to you after. Yeah, but
Sounds good to
it
me.
sounds like something's coming. So
Okay. Well,
be on
that's
the
always exciting.
be on the lookout, people.
All right.
Okay, yeah, I guess that wraps it up for today. There was a tiny bit of DC stuff I wanted to get into, but I'll save it for next week. We'll have some stuff to talk about. So, people, for my DC fans, I promise I didn't forget you. There's gonna be little things to talk about. There's a tiny bit of Peacemaker stuff that came out today, but I didn't want to discuss it yet. And there was also some Smallville
Lanterns.
stuff and Lanterns, yes.
Yeah.
So we'll do a little bit of a DC section next episode, cover that stuff we didn't get to, and hopefully we'll have some big Marvel news to catch up on. But until then, I think that's it. Marvin, any last words?
Drink your water, kids.
Yes, drink your water, kids. Stay hydrated. Don't dehydrate. All right. Everybody, have a good day, and thank you for listening to Capes and Crossovers. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
That's a wrap on this episode of Capes and Crossovers. Thanks for joining me and Marvin on this journey through the world of heroes. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a fellow fan, and let's keep building a community rooted in sincerity and celebration. Until next time, keep your cape flying high and your hearts open to the next big crossover. See you next time.